In demolition, we're specialists. Yes, the work's varied. We could be pulling down houses one week, demolishing a factory the next, or even a tower block. But what makes us specialists? No, it's not the fact that we demolish buildings. It's the fact that we have had the training and possess the knowledge, skills and ability to do it safely. Come on, let's take a look round and I'll show you what I mean. Safety in demolition is no different from safety in construction. However, there is a difference in how we deal with everyday situations. Let me explain further. In construction, the work tends to be carried out at a slow and steady pace, one piece at a time. When it comes to taking these elements apart, at the demolition stage, the operation is geared to reducing the structure and all its elements in much bigger pieces. A lot of the work is done by a mechanical plant, which does the job quickly and efficiently. But because of the nature of heavy plant and machinery and how it's used, there's always the potential for accident and incident. Ignore this and we're placing ourselves and others at very real risk. We're dealing with a variety of different materials, and one piece at a time doesn't come into it. We're talking tons of material coming down in one go. When you think about it, the potential for accidents is pretty high if we don't look out for ourselves and those around us. For example, we often work at height, and falls from height are the single largest causes of fatalities on construction sites. Then there's all the different substances we're in contact with: asbestos, lead, dust and residual chemicals, all hazards in their own different ways. So we shouldn't just think about the physical aspects of safety, we should also deal with our personal health, particularly when handling or working around noxious or contaminated substances and materials. And we do a lot of manual handling, lifting, moving. If we don't do it the right way and know our own limitations, well, you'll be amazed at how many people can't do this job anymore because of back injuries. But by using good common sense and understanding the hazards, we can avoid problems and injuries. It's a case of thinking about safety, checking that things are as they should be, and making sure that your actions aren't putting yourself or anyone else in danger. Of course, your employers have legal responsibilities to think about, but this programme isn't about these. It's about you and your personal safety. I take mine very seriously, and it's not because I'm a Jobsworth. It's because at the end of the day, I want to go home to my wife and kids, fit, healthy, and in one piece. In this job, we find ourselves working in all sorts of places. There are as many different types of demolition jobs as there are types of building. It doesn't take a genius to work that one out. So we have to be multi-skilled, and we have to understand the safety hazards of the job we're doing and of the site itself we're on. At the start of any job, your employer will have assessed the site. Before any work starts on site, you would have read the method statements and risk assessments, been given a detailed and thorough site induction, and advised of all hazards, both present and potential. It might be that there are certain weaknesses in the structure of the building itself, or maybe it's to do with the materials you're handling. There could be asbestos, toxic fibres. You might have to work in confined spaces with a lack of breathable air, or might have to use hand tools that could cause long-term health problems if the situation is not properly managed. How and when you use these things will all be explained later. But you will be provided with all the personal protective equipment, or PPE, that's needed for the job and that's right for the conditions. It's a legal duty of your employer to do this, but it's down to you to use the equipment correctly. Look after it, and if it's been lost or damaged, tell someone immediately. A hard hat, protective boots, gloves, high visibility vest, safety goggles and ear protectors are all standard kit. At times, the easiest and safest way of working at height is from a mobile elevated working platform. If you're working from one of these machines, you may also need to wear a safety harness and lanyard. If so, the free end of the lanyard must be clipped onto a strong point on the machine. Each job needs to be thoroughly assessed to determine the safest way to complete the work. Gloves are important. They protect you from cuts and abrasions, and they keep contaminated substances off your skin. If you think about all the different materials you have handled when carrying out the soft strip of a building, and the potential for contaminated substances such as excrement and urine from rats or even people, you know it makes sense. If you're handling chemicals or solvents, you should always wear rubber-based gloves. Hearing protectors. The law is very strict when it comes to hearing protection. Your employer has a duty of care to ensure that you are not exposed to excessive noise and that adequate controls are put in place to safeguard you. If you're unsure when or whether to use ear defenders, a good rule of thumb is that if you have to raise your voice to be heard at 2 meters, the noise is around 85 decibels, and at that level, by law, hearing protection must be provided by your employer and must be worn. Your employer must also supply you with hearing protection at the lower noise level of 80 decibels if you think you need it. There are different types of respirators for different jobs. This one's to filter the harmful fumes or dust out of the air that you would otherwise be breathing in. Of course, you'll need to be told how often the filter needs to be changed. In other low-risk areas, possibly during soft stripping, it may be decided that this type is okay to use. Of course, this type is useless against fumes. In demolition, there's always the possibility that you'll come across asbestos. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how harmful this can be. Proper planning of the job should mean that it's dealt with by specialist contractors. If you think that you have discovered asbestos, tell someone, quick. If there's contamination from lead-painted steelwork or asbestos cement, then suitable respiratory equipment is a must. What you have just been shown is known as Respiratory Protective Equipment, or RPE. You may be issued with more than one type of respirator, so make sure you know which one's for what and how to wear it correctly. Wearing the wrong one could be just as dangerous as not wearing one at all.
Any one of these things might spare you from injury or even save your life one day, so it's important to know how to use them. And if you're not sure at any time, just ask. Nobody is going to think you're stupid. If any of your equipment gets damaged, like for instance your goggles are too scuffed to see clearly through, ask for another pair. Visors can also be an effective and comfortable alternative to safety goggles. That's what they're there for, to use. Alright, sometimes they may get damaged, but rather them than you.
Let's recap on the main things to bear in mind about your PPE. First of all, be sure you understand the conditions and safety hazards of the particular job you're on. You will be provided with all the PPE you'll need for the job. Make sure you know how and when to use it. Always wear your hard hat, protective boots and your high visibility jacket when you're on site. Wear gloves, the right kind for the material you're handling. If you're not sure, ask. Know when to wear ear protection, and do. Know about respirators, which one for which potential hazard, and know how to use it.
Whenever you're on site, whatever the conditions, there are some simple rules to follow.
The most basic and obvious of these is to keep out of the exclusion zone. Here, any amount of vibration can cause amounts of debris to fall at any time. Even a hard hat wouldn't save you here. If you use machinery, make sure you have had the correct training and know how to use it safely. If you don't have the competence to operate it, don't take a chance. Traffic movement should be properly managed. The operator should always be aware of blind spots and do as the signaller instructs. In demolition, teamwork is an absolute necessity. You're part of a team and you rely on each other's good judgment and common sense. If you do have to work on your own, this will be a strictly controlled situation. The supervisor and the rest of your team must know where you are, why you're there and what you're doing. It's then down to your supervisor to check on you at regular intervals. Here we are on a typical demolition site, and this man could be you. Can you see anything wrong with what he's doing? You can see he's wearing his hard hat, protective boots and visibility jacket. His supervisor has informed him that services are all off, gas, water, electricity. No worries there. He's all ready to begin work. So what's wrong?
Okay, let's be honest. Nothing is immediately wrong. So let's put it another way. What could be the biggest hazard? The answer? He could be. He might just have accepted that everything's fine and switched into autopilot. But demolition is fast moving and things can change. Safety should always be on his mind. True, some of the responsibility for site safety is down to your supervisor, but most of it is down to you. Always be aware of what's going on around you. And don't just think about your own safety. Think about the safety of others working with you.
If you see something that doesn't look quite right, a possible hazard, it is worth mentioning. Don't assume your supervisor already knows about it. He might not, so point it out to him. Better to be safe than sorry. On a demolition site, fire is always possible. Of course, we're often working with flammable gases ourselves, and then there's a possible added danger of residual vapours lurking in pipes, tanks and so on. You can never be too sure exactly what you're going to find.
So everyone on site must be fully aware of what to do if a fire breaks out. Of course, fire extinguishers are carefully placed around the site, and in most cases, your fire safety officer will use these to deal with minor incidents.
But on a site like this, with so many materials, you'd be amazed how quickly a fire could take hold. And in an incident like this, you'll be looking at a full evacuation of the site. This would need to be done quickly and efficiently, so heads can be counted as soon as possible. Getting lost or wandering off during an evacuation could turn an incident into a crisis and put lives at risk. So make sure you know where the emergency assembly point is and that you're familiar with the evacuation plan for everybody's sake. So, just to recap on some general rules for safety on site. Keep out of the exclusion zone. Teamwork is vital. Be aware of what people around you are doing and make sure they know what you're doing. Don't work on your own unless it's a strictly controlled situation. Safety isn't just down to your supervisor. Use your own vigilance and common sense. If you see a possible hazard, report it. Know the fire evacuation procedure for the site, and in the event, stick to it.
As far as I'm concerned, demolition is a great way to earn a living. It's interesting, varied, and at the end of the day, it gives you a great sense of satisfaction.
Of course, you may not be able to work on a demolition site without a CSCS card. But this is a job that does offer you qualifications and the training you need to achieve it. Yes, it's a job with its hazards. We've all heard some horror stories. But at the end of the day, it needn't be dangerous as long as you follow the rules and guidelines. They're there for a good reason. Safety. So be alert. Think about what's going on around you. If you have any concerns, communicate and listen to others.
I'll tell you something, I'm proud of my safety record. The general public might think this is just a big game for macho men, but it's not. It's a serious job for people who want to go home every night in one piece. Safety is no accident.